Hey guys, it's Paul, combat veteran, MMA fighter, YouTuber, and today we are going to talk about how I am pissed. In fact, I think it's fair to say the entire Warhammer community is pretty pissed. Now, I understand that, I watched some episodes of the Emperor's Text-to-Speech device, didn't really get into it, but I definitely understand that this series has been going on for 8 years, and it drew so many Warhammer fans to the bizarre, fun, eccentric world of Warhammer 40k. And so to see Brother Alphabusa, who and his team, who again do this full time, right? Brother Alphabusa just had his first kid, and to have them preemptively terminate their series out of fear of GW is just incredibly messed up, honestly. And I am going to be engaging in some protest of what I think is Games Workshop's unfair policies towards creators, but more broadly about the dynamic that plays out between small creators and large corporations that own IP, intellectual property. What am I talking about? Well, specifically, Games Workshop recently updated, for those of you that have been living under a rock, Games Workshop, the company that owns Warhammer 40,000, updated their intellectual property guidelines. And they said that basically all fan works are now illegal. They will copyright strike you, force takedowns. They will do what they have to do to enforce copyright on their intellectual property. Now, Games Workshop is based in the UK, and some of the famous creators are based all over the world. Sodas is based in South Korea. You have, of course, TTS that I believe is based in the EU. You have creators like Luton and Major Kill, who are based in Australia. I think the UK for Luton, right? You have US-based animators. Richard Boylan is Canadian. So you have this globe-spanning creator community, and Games Workshop has said that in all of these jurisdictions, it is asserting its copyright over its intellectual property. Now, I don't begrudge them defending their IP. It's fine. You have the right. You invented this fictional world, and you have a right to, by and large, control how it's monetized. My problem, though, is that there's a good case that some or all of these creators fall under the fair use exemption. TTS, or the Emperor's Text-to-Speech device series, seems highly likely to be protected under U.S. parody law. Again, not sure if they are based in the United States, but most countries have exceptions carved out for works of parody, of which I think TTS certainly qualifies. But I'm not an IP lawyer, and I'm not the intellectual property court, but neither is GW, and this is where my fundamental problem comes in. You see, Games Workshop is a massive corporation. Since 2016, their stock price has gone up something like fourfold or fivefold. It's an unprecedented level of growth for a hobby company that makes miniatures where they sell them for $60 a pop and inexplicably get their fans to assemble and paint them for them. Their fans pay good money to finish the manufacturing process. So it's really hard for me to drum up sympathy for a company who has miraculously figured out that they can actually charge people for the privilege of manufacturing their product. What really bothers me is the power dynamic here. At the end of the day, the Emperor's Text-to-Speech device is a really successful YouTube cartoon. But it is just that. It is a YouTube cartoon. And to fight a court case, especially an international court case, is going to be almost impossible. To give you an idea, to defend a big multinational patent and IP law case like that, you're probably looking at about $1 million over several years in terms of expenses incurred just to have lawyers, or really it would be a team of lawyers, to work to defend yourself in these lawsuits against these companies. And Games Workshop, remember, is so big and so profitable that they could afford to fight you in a lawsuit indefinitely, just run you out of money through continually delaying, obfuscating, making bogus requests. This is how these lawsuits play out. They're deliberately extended. This is how things happen in the U.S. divorce court. This is how things happen when a celebrity sues another celebrity. This is what happens when two companies sue each other. These lawyers know that quick, prompt, easy resolutions are just not profitable. And, frankly, there's a victory in and of itself by just bleeding the other side dry. And when you have two mega corporations, Amazon and Microsoft suing each other, they can just sue each other forever because they're both behemoths. But the problem I have is that Soda's is, as far as we know, some Korean guy, right? His channel, max pulled in $10,000 a month, which $10,000 will get you a lawyer to, look at you. It certainly won't let you win an IP case, an intellectual property case in Korean court, not against a big corporation that can really defend itself. And you have no chance of winning an international arbitration court. Remember, YouTube is a US-based company, sort of, depending on how the subsidiary is structured and where you want to sue them. So even a small creator like Soda's could have to defend himself in 3 different courts in 3 different continents. And so this is my problem, right? We, as the fans and the public, will never know if Brother Alpha Boosta's series was or was not protected by U.S. parody law, because only one entity can make that decision, a court. But without sufficient resources to weather a court fight, there is no reason. They have no chance of ever winning. They have no choice but to acquiesce to GW's copyright claims. Or just the prospect of a cease and desist order is so frightening, right? The prospect of having to bring a lawyer into it is so frightening and bankrupting for Brother Alpha Boosta and his young family that they have no choice but to preemptively walk away from their livelihood. A livelihood that, again, a case seems like it could be made that they have every right to engage in. And this is, I think, emblematic of the power dynamic that we see in YouTube every day. Look at my videos, right? I do reactions to other lore YouTubers, and I absolutely, every time, every video, strive to add things to the discussion. I try to spend 50% or more of the video adding to, giving you guys context, and giving the videos more depth, right? And that's because I'm trying to, of course, not be the React channel where everyone looks and goes, oh, great, cool. But also because I recognize that I have to do right by these creators. And it's not fair to Luton, to Major Kill, to Baltimore, for me to get views off of their content while changing nothing and adding nothing, right? It goes against the letter of the U.S. law about fair use, and it goes against the spirit of the law about fair use. So, and we have federal court cases to back it up. So then it raises the question, Paul, why can't you do this for a movie? And it's a great question. I mean, is there legally a difference between a Luton lore video and a popular movie release? There shouldn't be. They're both media, visual media, produced and distributed for profit as part of a business venture. So then why is it that YouTube will strike me down automatically without hesitation if I use a clip of any substance about popular Hollywood films, regardless of whether I have the right to, which again, There's a fairly clear-cut U.S. court case, and there's a long history of protected movie criticisms. But why is it that YouTube refuses? Why is it that YouTube protects major companies instantaneously? So much so, a computer, lightning fast, will stop you. If you want to criticize the music of a pop artist with a major record label, immediately, if you use any substantive piece of that work for even mere moments in your video, you will have the entirety of your revenue directed to that company. Think about it. If I spend a half hour talking about, let's say, Taylor Swift's lawsuit with Scooter Braun and her right to her intellectual property, right? But I make the mistake in my, let's say, half-hour video of using 60 seconds of Taylor's music, I will have to divert all of my revenue to that creator, to that record company. And this is what bothers me so much, is that fundamentally, you can claim in the laws on paper that you have certain rights to things. You can say, oh, you got the right to free expression. Hey, you got the right to create parodies. You have the right to fair use of others' content in creating your art. But if you can't do it, if you, in practice, you cannot touch art that's owned by a large enough corporation, then you don't have that right. If you can't afford a lawyer and a court case and 3 years of your life and $1 million to sue Disney for the right to say Mickey Mouse is an asshole, then you don't have the right to say it, right? All you have is a legal fig leaf that you can hide behind, that the government can hide behind, and say, oh, everyone's got the right to fair use, but you don't. But you don't. And that's the larger problem here. This is why I'm engaging in protest, is because YouTube and every major corporation has functionally circumvented what I think is a fair and just copyright law. They have the ability to silence protected public speech through the threat of legal action. Now, what I would like to see, because I don't believe in protesting without having a clear set of actually feasible demands, right? I would like to see YouTube adopt a policy that allows fair use to be debated and that allows a more nuanced viewpoint of fair use and that's more egalitarian towards small creators and large corporations, that distinguishes in a meaningful way between protected speech and criticism and between blatant stealing of content. The law is clear, and I don't want YouTube to be lawyers, but right now they make no effort, and YouTube doesn't pretend to make an effort at granting creators, right, their protected rights under U.S. law at least to engage in criticism and parody. The other thing I would like to see, of course, is Games Workshop welcome its creators back into the fold in some way. Of course, again, some creators, I think, probably wouldn't stand up in court. Some of them are very clearly using Games Workshop intellectual property. But, again, some jurisdictions explicitly protect fan works. So it's hard to say whether or not these lawsuit threats are valid. But what I would really, really like to see, and this I recognize is probably beyond the scale of my 10,000 subscriber, 15,000 subscriber channel, but I would really like to see strengthening what are called anti-SLAP lawsuits. And SLAP stands for, I think it's like superfluous lawsuit against public participation. And these are when major corporations, often corporations or organizations, file frivolous lawsuits against their critics in an effort to silence them. This was actually really common. It actually happened to John Oliver, believe it or not. His show engaged in some clearly protected speech, journalism, criticizing a mining magnate, and the mining magnate immediately filed a lawsuit stating that they engaged in libel, right? Despite the fact that it doesn't even come, journalist reporting sourced story doesn't come remotely close to libel and should be laughed out of court by any judge. But, of course, because you have to prove it, and it takes months and months and months and years, potentially, to resolve these lawsuits, John Oliver, though backed by NBC Universal, was able to actually countersue because they're bigger than almost any mining conglomerate in the world. But imagine if instead of John Oliver, it was YouTuber Paul, right? YouTuber Paul wouldn't have a choice. He'd have to just acquiesce, right? And by strengthening what are called anti-SLAPP laws, those are usually add a step to the legal process in which both parties have to demonstrate on day one that there is at least a shred of merit, and that the issue at stake isn't one that's clearly and blatantly decided by constitutional law. That would be something that I would really like to see, and in the U.S., maybe some protections of fan works. So anyway, having done this big rant, what is my protest? First, this week will be 0 Warhammer-related content. Won't be streaming Space Marine, won't be reviewing Warhammer videos. We'll be doing some other stuff, and I'll let you know at the end of the video, for those of you that stick around, what it'll be. I think it'll be fun. And my other protest is that I'm going to help you guys out by buying some miniatures. Now, they may not be Games Workshop branded minis, but I'm going to buy them from a bunch of different sources, some of which sell them as eligible proxies and, sort of inspired by type miniatures, not unlike our friend Major Kill, who has several of his own miniatures available for purchase that may or may not be able to be used as proxies for Games Workshop miniatures. But I'm going to purchase them, and I got some paints, so I'm going to learn how to paint them, but mostly I'm going to give you guys some reviews, right? I'll let you know if this seller or that manufacturer is legit, if their stuff seems clean, if it seems high quality, and I'll show you the results of my painting. So I've got some of those on order already. We're going to do some videos where we paint. Maybe I'll even live stream paint, and you guys can learn alternative places to get your miniatures that don't support a corporation that, let's be honest, doesn't really support you back. That said, the other thing I wanted to talk about is this week, right, because I'm not doing Warhammer 40k content, I am going to be doing, on Monday, a Q&A. You got questions about my military service, my time as an MMA fighter, you name it, I'll answer it, except for a tiny number of topics I don't really want to discuss, but, I'll just ignore those questions if they come up. So, in the comments, I will read everyone. Be sure to let me know what your questions are for Monday's Combat Veteran Q&A. All right, that's all I had for you guys. Again, I really would appreciate it, too, if you would spread the word, man. Share the video, talk about what you can do to protest against this sort of larger encroachment, I think, on people's, small-time creators' ability to earn a living, and what I think is the larger encroachment of corporations and their ability to silence protected speech using the threat of lawsuits. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'm looking forward to talking to you guys later this week.